Hey guys, tonight we're diving into something we all crave, sleep. But in ancient China, how people slept turns out to be far weirder than most of us could imagine. People slept in full robes, worried their souls might wander off, and had strict rules about sleeping direction, like it was feng shui for your dreams. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Before memory foam and sleep tracking apps, ancient Chinese people approached bedtime with the precision of a feng shui consultant and the complexity of a NASA mission planner. It wasn't enough to simply lie down and close your eyes. Oh no, that would be far too simple. In ancient China, how you positioned yourself for sleep was considered a matter of life, death, and spiritual harmony. The direction your head pointed, the orientation of your bed, even which side you slept on. All of this was governed by elaborate theories that made choosing a sleeping position feel like solving a mathematical equation. According to traditional Chinese medicine and Taoist philosophy, sleeping with your head pointing north was considered the optimal position. This wasn't just a preference, it was believed to align your body's energy or qi with the Earth's magnetic field. Think of it as ancient biohacking, except instead of tracking your REM cycles, you were tracking the cosmos. The reasoning was actually quite sophisticated, if utterly impractical. Ancient Chinese scholars believed that the human body was a microcosm of the universe, complete with energy meridians that needed to flow in harmony with natural forces. Sleeping north meant your qi would flow from head to toe in alignment with the Earth's magnetic poles, supposedly promoting better health and deeper rest. But it wasn't just about magnetic fields. Different directions were associated with different outcomes. Sleeping with your head pointing east was thought to promote longevity and wisdom, because the sun rises in the east and brings new energy each day. West was generally avoided because that's where the sun sets and dies each evening. Not exactly the vibe you want for a good night's sleep. South was complicated. Some schools of thought considered it beneficial for circulation and heart health, while others warned it could lead to nightmares and restless sleep. Imagine trying to explain to your spouse that you need to rearrange the entire bedroom because you're worried about dream quality based on cardinal directions. The wealthy, of course, took this to extremes. Elite households would hire feng shui masters to design their sleeping quarters according to complex calculations involving birth dates, seasonal changes, and cosmic alignments. Your bed wasn't just furniture, it was a precision instrument for navigating the spiritual realm. Peasants, meanwhile, just tried to sleep somewhere that didn't leak and wasn't occupied by livestock. Funny how practical concerns tend to override cosmic theory when you're sharing your sleeping space with a pig. If you think modern celebrities are high maintenance about their sleeping arrangements, let me introduce you to Chinese emperors who turned bedtime into a political event requiring its own diplomatic protocol. The emperor's sleeping arrangements weren't just about comfort, they were about power, succession, and occasionally survival. The imperial bedchamber was less bedroom and more fortress, complete with guards, servants, and enough protocol to make a UN summit look casual. First, there was the matter of the bed itself. Imperial beds weren't just beds. They were architectural marvels. These massive structures, called dragon beds, were often the size of small rooms, elevated on platforms and surrounded by curtains so elaborate they required their own maintenance staff. The emperor didn't just sleep in a bed, he held court in one. But here's where it gets weird. Emperors often didn't sleep alone, and I'm not talking about romantic company. The imperial bedchamber was frequently occupied by multiple people, eunuchs to ensure safety, servants to attend to midnight needs, and sometimes even court officials who might need to discuss urgent matters. Privacy was not a concept that applied to imperial sleep. The process of getting the emperor ready for bed was a ceremony in itself. There were servants whose sole job was managing imperial pyjamas, others who specialised in pillow arrangement, and still others who monitored the emperor's breathing throughout the night. Going to sleep required more staff than most modern weddings. Temperature control was another elaborate affair. Since central heating hadn't been invented, imperial bedchambers relied on a system of heated stones, braziers, and strategically placed servants holding warming pans. Some emperors even had servants whose job was to lie at the foot of the bed like human heating pads. Imagine putting imperial foot warmer on your resume. The concubine selection process also affected imperial sleep. Emperors often chose which concubine would share their bed based on astrological charts, political considerations, and sometimes just random selection using coloured tiles. Nothing says romance like bureaucratic lottery systems. Security was paramount. The imperial bedchamber was guarded by multiple layers of protection, including eunuchs who slept in adjacent rooms and servants who tasted the emperor's bedtime tea for poison. Even the pillows were inspected for hidden weapons. Paranoia was apparently an occupational hazard of absolute power. Some emperors were so concerned about assassination attempts that they changed bedrooms every night, sleeping in different locations within the palace to avoid predictable patterns. Imagine being so powerful that even your sleep schedule needed to be classified information. While modern people obsess over thread counts and memory foam, ancient Chinese people did something that would horrify every sleep specialist on the planet. They deliberately chose the most uncomfortable pillows possible, and they did it on purpose. Enter the wooden pillow, or mu zhen, a contraption that looked like it was designed by someone who had never actually experienced sleep. These weren't just hard pillows, they were literally blocks of wood, sometimes carved into decorative shapes, but always maintaining their essential quality of being about as comfortable as sleeping on a brick. The logic behind wooden pillows was rooted in traditional Chinese medicine and a fundamental misunderstanding of what makes sleep restful. Ancient Chinese physicians believed that soft pillows caused the head to sink, which supposedly restricted blood flow and trapped dampness in the brain. Hard pillows, they reasoned, kept the head elevated and allowed qi to flow freely through the neck and head. But it wasn't just about blood flow. Wooden pillows were thought to prevent wrinkles, maintain proper posture, and even preserve elaborate hairstyles. For women with complex hair arrangements involving pins, ornaments, and enough styling products to stock a modern salon, sleeping on a wooden pillow meant waking up with your coiffure intact instead of looking like you'd been electrocuted. The wealthy had wooden pillows carved from expensive materials like rosewood or jade, sometimes inlaid with precious metals and decorated with intricate designs. These weren't just sleep accessories, they were status symbols. Nothing said, "I can afford to be uncomfortable," quite like a hand-carved jade pillow that cost more than most people's annual income. Some wooden pillows were hollow and filled with herbs or medicines that were supposed to provide aromatherapy benefits while you slept. Imagine trying to get comfortable on a wooden block while also being subjected to the medieval equivalent of a bath and bodywork store. The shapes varied wildly. Some were simple rectangles, others were curved to supposedly cradle the neck, and still others were designed to look like animals, flowers, or mythological creatures. There's something deeply unsettling about trying to sleep on a wooden dragon that's staring at you with carved eyes. For travellers, there were portable wooden pillows that folded or came apart for easy transport, because apparently, even when sleeping in an inn or on the road, ancient Chinese people couldn't bear the thought of accidentally being comfortable. The practice was so ingrained that soft pillows were actually seen as unhealthy and morally suspect. Comfort was viewed as a weakness. a sign that you lacked the discipline necessary for proper living. Sleep wasn't supposed to be enjoyable. It was supposed to be restorative and character building. Modern sleep studies would have a field day with this. Every principle of healthy sleep hygiene suggests that comfort is essential for proper rest. But ancient Chinese people were apparently operating under the theory that if you weren't suffering, you weren't doing it right. Ancient Chinese people didn't just lie down and hope for the best. They approached sleep positions with the systematic precision of yoga instructors and the theoretical complexity of engineering professors. Every angle, every limb placement, every direction had meaning, purpose, and supposedly health benefits. The most recommended position was lying on your right side, with your right hand supporting your head and your left hand resting on your left thigh. This position, called sleeping like a bow, was supposed to aid digestion, improve circulation, and prevent nightmares. The logic was that sleeping on your right side kept your heart elevated and reduced pressure on that vital organ. But it wasn't just about which side you slept on. The positioning of your arms and legs was considered crucial. Your top leg should be slightly bent, your top arm should never hang off the bed, and your head should be angled just so to maintain proper alignment with your spine. It was like trying to sleep while maintaining a specific yoga pose all night long. Sleeping on your back was generally discouraged unless you were ill. Back sleeping was thought to make you vulnerable to evil spirits and negative energy because you were completely exposed and defenseless. It was also believed to cause nightmares, probably because lying flat on a wooden pillow would give anyone nightmares. Stomach sleeping was considered the worst possible position, associated with laziness, poor character, and spiritual weakness. People who slept on their stomachs were thought to be gluttonous and morally suspect. Imagine being judged for your moral character based on how you unconsciously position yourself while unconscious. The positioning of your hands was particularly important. Sleeping with your hands above your head was thought to drain energy from your arms and cause weakness. Sleeping with your hands under your head was believed to restrict blood flow and cause headaches. Your hands were supposed to rest naturally at your sides, or in specific positions designed to promote qi circulation. Feet positioning was another concern. Your feet should never point toward the door, because that's how corpses were positioned, and it might confuse the spirits. They should also never be higher than your head, because that reversed the natural flow of energy through your body. Getting comfortable was apparently a complex geometric problem. Couples had additional rules to follow. Husbands and wives were supposed to sleep in complementary positions that promoted harmony and fertility. There were specific configurations for different seasons, different health conditions, and different life stages. Medieval sleep therapy was apparently a real career path. Some positions were seasonal. In summer, you were supposed to sleep more extended to release heat. In winter, you should curl up to conserve warmth. Spring and autumn had their own prescribed positions based on the changing energy of those seasons. Your sleep position was supposed to change with the weather, like some sort of human barometer. While modern people either ignore their dreams or frantically Google what it means to dream about flying, ancient Chinese people treated dreams like a television channel they could actually control. Dream management was a serious business, complete with techniques, theories, and professional consultants. The Chinese believed that dreams were journeys your soul took while your body rested. During sleep, your hun, one of your multiple souls, would leave your body and travel through various realms, gathering information, meeting with ancestors, and sometimes getting into trouble with demons. Sleep wasn't just rest, it was interdimensional travel. To ensure good dreams, people would prepare their sleeping area like they were setting up for a spiritual expedition. This included burning specific incenses, placing protective amulets around the bed, and sometimes even leaving offerings for helpful spirits. Your bedroom became a launching pad for nocturnal soul adventures. There were professional dream interpreters called Zhang Meng Shi, who specialized in decoding the messages your soul brought back from its nightly travels. These weren't just random interpretations. They had elaborate systems for categorizing different types of dreams and their meanings. Dreaming about dragons meant something completely different from dreaming about fish, and the context mattered enormously. Some dreams were considered prophetic, especially if they involved deceased ancestors or mythological figures. If your grandmother appeared in a dream to give you advice, you were expected to take it seriously. If you dreamed about the Jade Emperor, you might want to consider buying a lottery ticket or making major life changes. But not all dreams were welcome. Nightmares were thought to be caused by evil spirits, poor diet, or sleeping in the wrong position. To prevent bad dreams, people would place mirrors near their beds to confuse demons, hang protective charms, or sleep with specific herbs under their pillows. The wealthy could hire dream consultants who would design personalized dream enhancement programs. This might include special diets, meditation techniques, and bedroom modifications, all designed to promote particular types of dreams. Imagine having a personal trainer for your subconscious. Some people tried to induce specific dreams for practical purposes. Students would try to dream about their studies, hoping to receive insights or answers to difficult problems. Merchants might seek dreams about future market conditions. Artists and poets would try to dream about their creative work. Lucid dreaming was apparently ancient Chinese life coaching. There were also techniques for shared dreaming, where couples or families would try to meet in their dreams to discuss family matters or share experiences. The success rate was probably low, but the ambition was admirable. Dream journals were common among the educated classes. People would record their dreams immediately, upon waking, noting details about the environment, characters, and emotions involved. These journals were sometimes consulted years later when making important decisions or trying to understand patterns in their lives. Long before there were mattress stores on every corner and online sleep consultants, ancient China had developed a thriving industry around sleep-related products and services. The business of sleep was serious money, and entrepreneurs found ways to profit from every aspect of bedtime. Pillow makers were skilled artisans who specialised in creating the perfect wooden headrests. Master craftsmen could carve pillows that were both functional and beautiful, decorated with intricate designs that told stories or conveyed symbolic meanings. A high-quality wooden pillow was an investment piece that could last generations and be passed down as a family heirloom. There were sleep consultants who would visit wealthy households to assess and optimize sleeping arrangements. These experts would analyze everything from room layout to bedding materials, offering recommendations based on the occupant's health, age, social status, and astrological chart. It was like having an interior designer who specialized exclusively in bedrooms. The incense industry was closely tied to sleep commerce. Different herbs and aromatic woods were sold specifically for bedtime use, each promising different benefits. Some incenses claimed to promote prophetic dreams, others to prevent nightmares, and still others to improve health during sleep. It was the ancient equivalent of aromatherapy marketing. Mattress making was a specialized trade, though ancient Chinese mattresses bore little resemblance to modern versions. These were typically thin mats made from woven reeds, straw, or silk, designed to be firm and supportive rather than comfortable. Premium mattresses might be filled with herbs or designed with special ventilation patterns. Bed frame construction was an art form among skilled carpenters. Wealthy families would commission elaborate bed frames with built-in storage, privacy screens, and decorative elements. Some beds were so large and complex they required assembly teams and architectural planning. A good bed frame was basically a piece of furniture architecture. There were also sleep-related medical practitioners who specialised in treating insomnia, nightmares, and other sleep disorders using traditional Chinese medicine. These specialists would prescribe herbal remedies, acupuncture treatments, and lifestyle modifications, all designed to improve sleep quality. The textile industry produced specialised bedding materials, from silk sheets for the wealthy to hemp blankets for common people. Different fabrics were believed to have different properties. Silk was thought to be cooling and luxurious, while cotton was considered warming and practical. Even the positioning of beds became a consulting service. Feng Shui masters would charge substantial fees to determine the optimal placement of sleeping areas within a home, taking into account everything from compass directions to the flow of water and wind around the property. Ancient Chinese people didn't just change their wardrobes with the seasons, they changed their entire sleeping patterns. The concept of maintaining the same bedtime year-round was considered unhealthy and out of harmony with natural rhythms. Sleep schedules were supposed to flow with the seasons, like everything else in the natural world. Spring sleeping was all about renewal and awakening. As the days grew longer, people were supposed to gradually shift their bedtimes later and wake up earlier, mirroring the increasing daylight. Spring was considered the time to sleep less and be more active, emerging from the hibernation-like patterns of winter. The recommended spring sleep position emphasized openness and expansion. People were encouraged to sleep in more extended positions, allowing their bodies to stretch and their qi to flow freely after the contracted positions of winter. It was like seasonal yoga for sleepers. Summer brought the most dramatic sleep schedule changes. The heat meant that many people would take afternoon naps to avoid the hottest part of the day, then stay up later when the temperature dropped. The concept of sleeping through hot summer afternoons was considered both healthy and practical. Summer sleep positions were designed to promote cooling. People were supposed to sleep more spread out, with limbs extended to maximize heat dissipation. The bedding was also changed to lighter materials, and sleeping areas were sometimes moved to courtyards or other open spaces to catch cooling breezes. Autumn sleep patterns focused on preparation and conservation. As the days grew shorter, bedtimes gradually moved earlier, and people were encouraged to sleep more to build up energy reserves for winter. Autumn was considered the time to begin storing rest like squirrels store nuts. The autumn sleep position emphasized gathering and containment. People were supposed to begin sleeping in more contracted positions, drawing their limbs closer to their bodies to conserve warmth and energy. It was a gradual transition toward winter sleeping patterns. Winter brought the most sleep of all. Long nights meant extended sleeping periods, and people were encouraged to sleep as much as possible during the darkest months. Winter sleep was considered restorative and essential for health, a time when the body naturally wanted to hibernate. Winter sleep positions were all about conservation and protection. People slept curled up, sometimes sharing beds for warmth, with multiple layers of bedding. The goal was to maintain body heat and minimize energy expenditure during the harsh winter months. But it wasn't just about timing and position. The foods eaten before bed were also supposed to change with the seasons. Spring called for lighter foods that promoted energy and circulation. Summer emphasized cooling foods like certain fruits and vegetables. Autumn focused on nourishing foods that built strength, while winter demanded warming foods that generated internal heat. Even the dreams were supposed to be different in each season. Spring dreams should be about growth and new beginnings. Summer dreams were expected to be active and vibrant. Autumn dreams should focus on harvest and preparation, while winter dreams were supposed to be restful and restorative. In ancient China, how you slept wasn't just personal preference. It was a public declaration of your place in society. Sleep arrangements, bedding quality, and even sleeping positions were all markers of social status that everyone understood and closely monitored. Emperors and nobles slept on elevated platforms that literally placed them above everyone else, even while unconscious. The height of your bed was directly correlated with your social rank. Peasants slept on floor mats. Merchants might have low wooden beds. Officials had higher frames, and nobility slept on beds that required steps to access. The materials used in bedding were strictly regulated by sumptuary laws that dictated what different social classes could and couldn't use. Silk was reserved for the highest ranks, fine cotton for merchants and officials, rough cotton for artisans, and hemp or straw for peasants. Your thread count was literally determined by law. Pillow materials followed similar hierarchies. The emperor used pillows made from precious materials like jade or gold-inlaid wood. Nobles had carved wooden pillows with decorative elements. Officials used plain wooden pillows. Merchants might have simple wooden blocks, while peasants used whatever they could find: folded clothes, bundled straw, or just their arms. The number of people in your sleeping space was also a status indicator. Emperors had entire bedchambers with multiple attendants. Wealthy families had separate sleeping areas for different family members. Middle-class families might share rooms but have individual beds. Poor families often slept together on shared surfaces, sometimes including servants and even livestock. Privacy was a luxury that only the wealthy could afford. Peasant families often slept in single-room homes, where everyone's sleeping habits were on display. The rich had private bedchambers, with doors, curtains, and sometimes even separate buildings for sleeping. Being able to sleep without an audience was a sign of high status. Even sleeping clothing reflected social hierarchies. The wealthy had specialised nightwear, made from fine materials and designed for comfort. Common people slept in their day clothes, or simple undergarments. The very poor might sleep naked simply because they didn't have enough clothing to designate some pieces specifically for sleep. The timing of sleep also indicated status. Peasants and labourers went to bed early and rose early because their work demanded it. The wealthy could afford to stay up later and sleep later, showing that they didn't need to work with their hands or follow the rhythms of agricultural labour. Servants and slaves had their sleep schedules dictated by their master's needs. They might be required to stay awake late to attend to their employers, then rise early to begin the next day's work. Having control over your own sleep schedule was itself a privilege. The location of sleeping areas within a home or compound also reflected status. Masters slept in the best locations, usually the most protected, comfortable, and prestigious areas. Servants slept in peripheral areas, often without heating or protection from the elements. Your sleeping location announced your position in the household hierarchy. Long before sleep studies and CPAP machines, ancient Chinese physicians developed elaborate theories and treatments for sleep disorders. Traditional Chinese medicine approached sleep problems as symptoms of larger imbalances in the body's energy systems, requiring holistic treatment approaches that would seem bizarre to modern doctors. Insomnia was diagnosed not just as difficulty sleeping, but as a sign of disrupted qi flow, usually caused by emotional stress, poor diet, or spiritual imbalance. Treatment might involve acupuncture sessions designed to redirect energy flow, herbal medicines to calm the spirit, and lifestyle changes to restore harmony between mind and body. Different types of sleep problems were categorized with the precision of a modern medical textbook. Shen Bu Ning referred to restless sleep caused by an agitated spirit. Xin Shen Bu Jiao described the inability to fall asleep due to heart and mind disconnection. Each condition had specific causes, symptoms, and treatments. Herbal sleep remedies were incredibly sophisticated, often involving complex formulations of multiple ingredients designed to work together. Popular sleep herbs included Sisyphus seeds for calming the mind, Schisandra berries for strengthening the spirit, and dragon bone fossils for anchoring wandering souls. Yes, ground-up dinosaur bones were considered sleep medicine. Acupuncture points specifically for sleep disorders were mapped with anatomical precision. The yin-tang point between the eyebrows was needled to calm the mind. The shenmen point on the ear was used to settle the spirit. The anmian points on the neck were specifically developed to induce sleep. Ancient Chinese acupuncturists were basically human sleep programmers. Diet therapy for sleep problems was equally detailed. Certain foods were considered sleep-promoting. Jujube dates to nourish the blood, lily bulbs to calm the heart, and longan fruit to strengthen the spirit. Other foods were avoided before bedtime. Spicy dishes that created internal heat, cold foods that disrupted digestion, and alcohol that scattered the spirit. Massage techniques for promoting sleep were passed down through generations of healers. Specific pressure points on the head, hands, and feet were massaged in precise sequences to encourage drowsiness and calm the nervous system. Some massage routines were so complex they required memorizing dozens of pressure points and timing sequences. Meditation and breathing exercises were prescribed for sleep disorders with the specificity of modern pharmaceutical prescriptions. Different breathing patterns were recommended for different types of insomnia. Visualization exercises helped people prepare their minds for sleep. Some techniques involved imagining specific colours, landscapes, or symbols designed to promote particular types of dreams. Exercise prescriptions for sleep problems were surprisingly modern in their approach. Gentle movements like Tai Chi and Qigong were recommended for people with sleep anxiety. More vigorous exercises were prescribed for those whose sleep problems stemmed from insufficient physical activity. Even in ancient times, doctors understood the connection between physical activity and sleep quality. Environmental modifications were also part of sleep therapy. Doctors might recommend changes to bedroom layout, bedding materials, or sleeping positions based on the patient's specific condition and constitution. Some treatments involve sleeping in different locations or at different times to restore natural circadian rhythms. Privacy wasn't just rare in ancient Chinese households, it was practically non-existent. Most families slept together in arrangements that would horrify modern parents, but were considered perfectly normal and even beneficial for family harmony and practical warmth management. The typical peasant family shared a single room that served as kitchen, living area, and bedroom. At night, sleeping mats would be unrolled and the entire family would settle down together, often with parents in the centre and children arranged around them like satellites. Personal space was measured in inches, not feet. Wealthy families had more rooms, but still often shared sleeping spaces. Children commonly slept with parents until marriage, and sometimes even after marriage, if the household couldn't accommodate separate spaces for new couples. Multi-generational sleeping arrangements were the norm rather than the exception. The arrangement of people within shared sleeping spaces followed strict hierarchical rules. The eldest male typically got the best position, usually against the wall or in the warmest spot. Women and children were arranged according to age and status. Servants, if they slept in the same room, were positioned near the door or in the least comfortable locations. Heating considerations made shared sleeping a practical necessity. Body heat was often the primary source of warmth during cold nights, and families would huddle together under shared blankets for survival as much as comfort. Children were particularly valued as sleeping companions because they generated more heat relative to their size. Guest accommodations followed similar sharing principles. Visitors were often invited to share the family sleeping space rather than being given separate rooms. This wasn't considered an inconvenience but rather an honour and a sign of hospitality. Refusing to share sleeping space with guests could be seen as rude or unwelcoming. Marriage didn't necessarily mean private sleeping arrangements. New couples often continued to sleep in shared family spaces, sometimes separated from others only by hanging curtains or wooden screens. Intimacy had to be managed with great discretion and usually required careful timing when others were deeply asleep. The logistics of shared sleeping required complex coordination. People had to negotiate sleeping positions, manage bedding distribution, and coordinate wake-up times. Snoring, restless sleep, or illness could affect the entire household's rest. Getting up during the night for any reason meant carefully navigating around multiple sleeping bodies. Children learned sleeping etiquette from an early age. They were taught not to sprawl, not to kick others during sleep, and to remain quietly in their designated areas throughout the night. Sleep behaviour was considered a reflection of character and family discipline. Seasonal changes affected shared sleeping arrangements. In winter, families might sleep even closer together for warmth, sometimes piling multiple layers of people under shared blankets. In summer, they might spread out more, or even sleep separately to avoid overheating. The social aspects of shared sleeping were considered beneficial for family bonding and child development. Children who slept with their parents and siblings were thought to develop stronger family loyalty and better social skills. Isolation during sleep was seen as potentially harmful to personality development. As Chinese civilization evolved from ancient kingdoms through various dynastic periods, sleep culture became increasingly sophisticated and stratified. What began as practical survival strategies gradually transformed into elaborate social systems that reflected the growing complexity of Chinese society. During the Han Dynasty, sleep customs became more systematized and influenced by Confucian ideals of social order and family harmony. The proper way to sleep became associated with moral character and social responsibility. How you arranged your sleeping space, what materials you used, and even how you positioned your body were seen as reflections of your virtue and respect for social hierarchy. The Tang Dynasty brought unprecedented prosperity and cultural exchange, which revolutionized Chinese sleep culture. Silk production reached new heights, making luxurious bedding more widely available to the merchant classes. Foreign influences introduced new sleeping arrangements and bedroom designs. The wealthy began to experiment with different types of furniture and room layouts specifically designed for sleep. Buddhist influences during this period also changed attitudes towards sleep and dreams. Buddhist teachings about the nature of consciousness and the illusory nature of reality affected how people understood the relationship between waking and sleeping states. Meditation practices designed to maintain awareness during sleep became popular among religious practitioners. The Song Dynasty saw the development of increasingly sophisticated furniture and domestic architecture. Beds became more elaborate, with built-in storage, decorative elements, and complex canopy systems. The concept of the bedroom as a specialized space designed primarily for sleep began to emerge among the wealthy. During the Ming Dynasty, sleep culture reached new heights of complexity and refinement. The imperial court developed elaborate protocols for imperial sleep that involved dozens of servants and complex security arrangements. The emperor's bedtime routine became a state ritual with its own etiquette and ceremonial requirements. The Qing dynasty brought Manchu influences that modified traditional Chinese sleep customs. Different ethnic groups within the expanding empire contributed their own sleeping traditions, creating a more diverse and complex sleep culture. The integration of different cultural approaches to sleep led to new hybrid practices and beliefs. Throughout these dynastic changes, certain core elements of Chinese sleep culture remained constant. The emphasis on direction and position, the use of hard pillows, the importance of seasonal adjustments, and the integration of sleep with broader philosophical and medical theories about health and harmony. Regional variations also developed over time. Northern Chinese developed different sleeping practices than Southern Chinese, influenced by climate differences and cultural variations. Urban sleep culture diverged from rural practices as cities grew, and social structures became more complex. The merchant classes that emerged during later dynasties created new markets for sleep-related goods and services. The business of sleep became more sophisticated, with specialized craftsmen, consultants, and medical practitioners all contributing to an increasingly complex industry built around rest and dreams. Ancient Chinese ingenuity extended far beyond silk and gunpowder to include surprisingly sophisticated technologies designed to improve sleep quality and comfort. These innovations demonstrate how seriously Chinese culture took the challenge of creating optimal sleeping conditions. One of the most remarkable innovations was the development of heated beds using early forms of radiant heating. Wealthy households would construct beds with hollow spaces underneath, where hot coals or heated stones could be placed to warm the sleeping surface. This Kang system was particularly popular in northern China, where winters were harsh, and heating was essential for survival. The Chinese also pioneered sophisticated ventilation systems for bedrooms, recognizing that air quality affected sleep quality. Some wealthy homes featured ingenious designs that channeled fresh air into sleeping areas while exhausting stale air. These systems use principles of natural convection and air pressure that wouldn't be understood by Western science for many centuries. Mosquito control technology was another area of innovation. Before modern insecticides, Chinese households developed various methods to protect sleepers from insects. These included burning specific herbs that repelled mosquitoes, constructing fine mesh screens around beds, and even training certain birds to eat insects in sleeping areas. Sound management was also addressed through architectural innovations. Bedrooms were often positioned in the quietest parts of houses, away from street noise and household activities. Some wealthy families constructed double-walled sleeping chambers with sound-absorbing materials between the walls to create peaceful sleeping environments. The development of adjustable furniture allowed for customized sleeping arrangements. Some beds featured adjustable heights and angles, allowing users to modify their sleeping position for comfort or health reasons. These mechanical systems use simple but effective lever and pulley systems to achieve adjustability. Portable sleep technology was developed for travellers and military personnel. Collapsible beds, folding pillows, and compact bedding systems allowed people to maintain some sleep comfort while away from home. These designs prioritised lightweight and easy assembly, while still providing basic sleeping amenities. Climate control innovations went beyond simple heating and cooling. Some bedrooms featured systems for controlling humidity using water features or hygroscopic materials. The recognition that moisture levels affected sleep comfort led to various technologies for maintaining optimal humidity in sleeping spaces. Storage integration was another innovation that reflected the practical needs of Chinese households. Beds were often designed with built-in storage for bedding, clothing, and personal items. These space-saving designs were particularly important in urban areas where living space was limited. Lighting technology specifically for bedrooms was also developed. Special oil lamps and candle holders were designed to provide gentle illumination for evening activities while minimizing fire risk. Some systems featured adjustable light levels and directional lighting to avoid disturbing sleeping partners. The Chinese also developed early forms of sleep monitoring, though not in the modern technological sense. Trained servants or family members would observe sleeping patterns and report on sleep quality, breathing irregularities, or other concerns. This human-based monitoring system served some of the same functions as modern sleep studies. Ancient Chinese culture viewed sleep not as a simple biological function, but as a profound spiritual journey that connected the physical world with multiple dimensions of existence. The boundary between waking and sleeping was seen as permeable, allowing for communication with ancestors, spirits, and divine beings. The Chinese believed that humans possessed multiple souls, and during sleep, some of these souls would leave the body to travel in other realms. The Han soul was particularly active during dreams, journeying to meet with deceased relatives, explore heavenly realms, or receive guidance from divine beings. Sleep was essentially interdimensional travel, and dreams were the souvenirs brought back from these journeys. Preparation for sleep therefore involved spiritual as well as physical considerations. People would cleanse themselves spiritually before bed, often through prayer, meditation, or ritual purification. The goal was to ensure that their travelling souls would be protected and would have positive experiences in the other realms. Dream interpretation was a highly developed spiritual practice with elaborate systems for understanding the messages received during sleep. Different types of dreams had different meanings, and the context, symbols, and emotions involved all contributed to the interpretation. Professional dream interpreters were consulted for particularly significant or confusing dreams. Nightmares were understood as spiritual attacks or indicators of spiritual imbalance. They might be caused by evil spirits, ancestral displeasure, or internal spiritual conflicts. Treatment for nightmares involved spiritual remedies such as protective charms, cleansing rituals, or changes in spiritual practice. The timing of dreams was also considered significant. Dreams that occurred during different parts of the night had different meanings and levels of importance. Early dreams might be influenced by the day's activities, while dreams just before dawn were considered most prophetic and spiritually significant. Some people attempted to cultivate specific types of spiritual dreams through various practices. Students might seek dreams that would help with their studies. Artists might seek inspiration from dream visions. And spiritual practitioners might seek dreams that would advance their enlightenment. Lucid dreaming techniques were developed to maintain conscious awareness during dream states. Ancestral communication through dreams was considered not just possible, but expected. Deceased family members were believed to visit their living relatives in dreams to provide guidance, warnings, or simply to maintain family connections across the boundary of death. These dream visits were taken as seriously as face-to-face conversations. The bedroom itself was treated as a sacred space that needed spiritual protection. Protective talismans, mirrors to confuse evil spirits, and sacred texts were placed around sleeping areas to ensure safe spiritual travel during sleep. The physical arrangement of the bedroom was designed to promote positive spiritual experiences. The business of sleep in ancient China was far more complex and profitable than most people realize. What began as basic survival needs evolved into a sophisticated industry that catered to every aspect of rest, from practical bedding to spiritual dream enhancement services. Specialized craftsmen developed entire careers around sleep-related products. Master pillow carvers were respected artisans who could command high prices for their wooden creations. These weren't just functional objects, but works of art that could be passed down through generations as valuable family heirlooms. The bed frame industry was particularly lucrative among the wealthy classes. Skilled carpenters would spend months creating elaborate sleeping platforms that were essentially pieces of architectural art. These beds often featured intricate carvings, hidden compartments, and adjustable components that made them highly valuable investments. Textile production specifically for bedding became a major economic sector. Different grades of silk, cotton, and other fabrics were produced specifically for sleeping use, with each quality level targeting different social classes. The finest silk bedding was so expensive that it represented a significant portion of a wealthy family's total assets. Professional sleep consultants emerged as a distinct service industry. These experts would visit wealthy households to analyse and optimise sleeping arrangements, charging substantial fees for their expertise in feng shui, traditional medicine, and bedroom design. It was like having a personal sleep coach centuries before the concept officially existed. The incense and aromatherapy industry was closely tied to sleep commerce. Merchants specialised in herbs and fragrances specifically marketed for bedtime use, each claiming different benefits for sleep quality, dream enhancement, or spiritual protection. The markup on these products was often enormous, making it a highly profitable trade. Medical practitioners who specialised in sleep disorders could command premium prices for their services. These doctors would not only diagnose and treat sleep problems, but also design comprehensive lifestyle modification programs that included diet, exercise, and environmental changes. The furniture rental industry even extended to sleeping equipment. Wealthy families hosting large gatherings might rent additional beds, bedding, and sleeping accessories to accommodate guests. This temporary furniture rental business was particularly active during festival seasons and wedding celebrations. Regional trade in sleep-related goods created extensive commercial networks. Different areas specialised in different products. Some regions were known for their wooden pillows, others for their mattress materials, and still others for their bedding textiles. This specialisation created complex supply chains and trading relationships. Even the storage and maintenance of bedding became a service industry. Wealthy households would employ servants specifically responsible for the care and storage of seasonal bedding, the cleaning and preservation of expensive textiles, and the rotation of different sleeping accessories throughout the year. Ancient Chinese bedroom design was far more than mere interior decoration. It was an exercise in environmental engineering that took into account everything, from spiritual energy flow to practical temperature control. The bedroom wasn't just a place to sleep, it was a carefully designed life support system for rest and dreams. The orientation of bedrooms within a house was determined by complex feng shui calculations that considered the building's position relative to mountains, water sources, and cardinal directions. The ideal bedroom faced east to capture morning sunlight, while being protected from harsh winds and negative energy flows. Room size was carefully calculated based on the occupant's social status and the intended use of the space. Imperial bedrooms were enormous, designed to accommodate not just sleep but also morning audiences, private consultations, and ceremonial activities. Peasant sleeping areas were tiny, often just large enough for a sleeping mat, and minimal storage. Ventilation design was surprisingly sophisticated, using principles of natural air circulation that wouldn't be fully understood by Western architecture for centuries. Bedrooms featured strategically placed windows, vents, and openings that created airflow patterns designed to maintain comfortable sleeping temperatures year-round. The placement of furniture within bedrooms followed strict rules based on feng shui principles and practical considerations. Beds were positioned to take advantage of natural light and airflow, while avoiding direct alignment with doors or windows that might allow evil spirits to enter. Storage solutions were integrated directly into bedroom architecture. Built-in cabinets, underbed storage, and wall niches were designed to hold bedding, clothing, and personal items without cluttering the sleeping space. Efficient storage was particularly important in urban areas where space was limited. Lighting design for bedrooms involved both natural and artificial illumination. Windows were positioned to provide gentle morning light while avoiding harsh afternoon sun. For artificial lighting, special fixtures were designed to provide adjustable illumination for evening activities without disturbing sleep. Sound control was achieved through both architectural design and material selection. Bedrooms were often positioned in the quietest parts of houses, and walls might be constructed with sound-absorbing materials to create peaceful, sleeping environments. The wealthy could afford double-walled construction for maximum sound isolation. Temperature control systems were integrated into bedroom design through various innovative methods. Heated floors, heated walls, and even heated furniture were used in northern regions, while southern bedrooms featured cooling systems using water features and natural ventilation. Privacy considerations shaped bedroom design, though the level of privacy varied dramatically by social class. Wealthy families could afford separate bedrooms for different family members, while common people often had to use hanging curtains or movable screens to create minimal privacy in shared spaces. Decorative elements in bedrooms weren't just aesthetic, they often served spiritual or practical purposes. Paintings and carvings might feature protective symbols or auspicious imagery designed to promote good dreams and peaceful sleep. Even the colours used in bedroom decoration were chosen for their supposed effects on sleep quality and spiritual well-being. Going to bed in ancient China wasn't simply a matter of lying down and closing your eyes. It was a complex ritual process that could take hours and involved multiple participants, especially in wealthy households where bedtime ceremonies reflected social status and spiritual beliefs. The preparation process began well before actual sleep time. Servants would begin heating sleeping areas, preparing bedding, and arranging sleeping accessories according to precise protocols. Everything from the positioning of pillows to the folding of blankets followed specific procedures designed to promote optimal sleep conditions. Personal cleansing rituals were considered essential for proper sleep preparation. This wasn't just about physical hygiene, though washing hands, feet and face was important, but also about spiritual purification. People would often burn incense, recite prayers, or perform small ceremonies to cleanse themselves of the day's negative energy. Clothing change ceremonies were particularly elaborate among the wealthy. Special sleeping garments would be laid out according to seasonal and social requirements. The process of changing into sleeping clothes was often assisted by servants and involved specific procedures for folding and storing day clothes. Food and drink rituals before bed were carefully regulated according to traditional Chinese medicine principles. Certain teas might be consumed to promote sleep, while specific foods were avoided to prevent digestive problems or bad dreams. The timing and quantity of pre-sleep consumption was precisely calculated. Family bedtime rituals often involved the gathering of household members for evening prayers, storytelling, or planning for the next day's activities. These social rituals served to strengthen family bonds while also providing a transition period between the day's activities and sleep. The arrangement of sleeping spaces was itself a ritual process. Bedding would be unfolded in specific patterns, pillows positioned according to feng shui principles, and protective objects placed around the sleeping area. The physical preparation of the sleeping space was considered as important as personal preparation. Dream preparation rituals were designed to influence the content and quality of dreams. This might involve meditation, visualization exercises, or the placement of specific objects under pillows or around beds. Some people would even write down their dream intentions before sleep, hoping to receive guidance or inspiration during their dreams. Security rituals reflected both practical and spiritual concerns. Doors and windows would be secured, protective charms activated, and sometimes guards or family members assigned to watch over sleeping individuals. The boundary between physical and spiritual protection was often blurred in these bedtime security procedures. Morning awakening rituals were the reverse of bedtime ceremonies, involving gradual transitions from sleep to wakefulness. These might include dream recording, thanksgiving prayers, and careful attention to the body's condition upon waking. The way someone awakened was considered as important as how they went to sleep. Seasonal variations in bedtime rituals reflected the Chinese understanding of natural cycles and their effect on human health. Winter bedtime rituals were designed to conserve energy and maintain warmth, while summer rituals focused on cooling and energy circulation. Each season required different approaches to sleep preparation. Sleep in ancient China was never just about rest, it was a complex social statement that reinforced class distinctions and power relationships. How you slept, where you slept, and what you slept on were all carefully regulated indicators of your position in society's rigid hierarchy. At the apex of the sleep hierarchy sat the emperor, whose sleeping arrangements were so elaborate they required their own government departments to manage. Imperial bedtime involved dozens of servants, multiple security layers, and protocols so complex they filled entire manuals. The emperor's sleep was literally a matter of state. The emperor's sleeping quarters weren't just bedrooms, they were architectural complexes designed to demonstrate a power even while their occupant was unconscious. Multiple chambers, each with specific functions, surrounded the actual sleeping area. Some were for security, others for servants, and still others for the various ceremonies that surrounded imperial sleep. Imperial concubines had their own sleep hierarchy within the palace system. The ranking of concubines determined not only who slept with the emperor, but also the quality of their own sleeping accommodations. Higher-ranked concubines had better beds, finer bedding, and more comfortable sleeping environments. Below the imperial level, the aristocracy created their own elaborate sleep hierarchies. Noble families often had multiple sleeping areas within their compounds, with the best rooms reserved for the highest-ranking family members. The placement of sleeping quarters within a compound was itself a statement of family hierarchy. Government officials had sleeping arrangements that reflected their bureaucratic rank. Higher officials could afford better bedding, larger sleeping spaces, and more servants to attend to their bedtime needs. The civil service examination system even influenced sleep quality. Successful scholars could afford better rest. The merchant class occupied a complex position in the sleep hierarchy. While they might have money for luxurious bedding and sleeping accessories, their social status was still considered lower than that of government officials or scholars. Their sleeping arrangements often reflected this tension between wealth and social position. Artisans and craftsmen had their own internal sleep hierarchies based on skill level and specialization. Master craftsmen could afford better sleeping conditions than apprentices, and certain prestigious trades provided better sleeping opportunities than others. Guild memberships sometimes included provisions for sleeping accommodations during travel. Agricultural workers, who made up the majority of the population, had the most basic sleeping arrangements. Peasant families often shared single rooms for all activities, with sleeping areas that were cleared and prepared each night. Privacy and comfort were luxuries they couldn't afford. Servants and slaves occupied the bottom of the sleep hierarchy, often sleeping wherever space could be found within their masters' households. Their sleeping schedules were determined by their master's needs, and they might be required to remain available for service throughout the night. Women's sleeping arrangements were generally determined by their male relatives' social status, though they had their own internal hierarchies based on age, marital status, and position within households. Older women typically had better sleeping accommodations than younger ones. Even within families, sleep arrangements reflected generational and gender hierarchies. Parents had the best sleeping positions, followed by sons in order of age, then daughters. These arrangements weren't just practical, they were visual representations of family power structures. The enforcement of sleep hierarchies was both formal and informal. Government regulations sometimes specified what types of bedding different social classes could use, while social pressure ensured that people didn't sleep above their station. Violating sleep protocols could result in social ostracism or even legal penalties. Like all aspects of traditional Chinese culture, ancient sleep practices gradually evolved and changed over the centuries, influenced by foreign contact, technological advancement, and social transformation. The sleep culture that had remained relatively stable for thousands of years began to shift dramatically during the late imperial period. The introduction of new materials and technologies from foreign trade gradually changed Chinese sleeping arrangements. Cotton from India, new textile production methods, and different furniture designs began to influence traditional sleeping practices. The rigid adherence to wooden pillows and traditional bedding materials slowly gave way to more comfortable alternatives. Western contact during the late Qing dynasty brought entirely new concepts of sleep and bedroom design. Western-style beds, soft pillows, and different sleeping positions began to appear in Chinese households, initially among the wealthy who could afford foreign goods and were interested in foreign customs. The collapse of the imperial system in the early 20th century also meant the end of the elaborate sleep hierarchies that had structured Chinese society for millennia. Without strict social classes enforced by law, people were free to choose their sleeping arrangements based on personal preference and economic ability rather than social status. Urbanization and industrialization changed the practical aspects of Chinese sleep culture. As people moved from rural agricultural communities to urban industrial centres, the seasonal sleep patterns that had been based on agricultural rhythms became less relevant. Factory work required different sleep schedules that didn't necessarily align with traditional practices. Modern medical knowledge gradually replaced traditional Chinese sleep medicine, though many traditional practices persisted alongside modern treatments. The understanding of sleep as a biological process rather than a spiritual journey changed how people approached bedtime preparation and sleep disorders. The communist revolution of the 20th century deliberately targeted many traditional practices as remnants of feudal society. Sleep rituals that reinforced social hierarchies were actively discouraged, and collective living arrangements promoted different sleeping practices based on egalitarian principles rather than traditional hierarchies. Economic development in modern China has created new sleep challenges and opportunities. Urban noise, artificial lighting, and modern work schedules have created sleep problems that traditional Chinese medicine never had to address. At the same time, economic prosperity has made comfortable sleeping arrangements available to ordinary people for the first time in Chinese history. Contemporary Chinese sleep culture represents a fascinating blend of traditional and modern elements. Many people still pay attention to bed placement and sleep direction, while also using modern mattresses and sleeping aids. Traditional herbal sleep remedies are often used alongside modern sleep medications. The global nature of modern Chinese society means that Chinese sleep practices now influence and are influenced by sleep cultures from around the world. The ancient Chinese emphasis on sleep quality and the connection between sleep and health has found new relevance in modern wellness culture. Yet for all these changes, certain elements of traditional Chinese sleep culture persist. The emphasis on harmony and balance, the attention to environmental factors affecting sleep, and the understanding that sleep is connected to overall health and well-being continue to influence how many Chinese people approach rest and recovery. As we reach the end of our journey through the fascinating and often bizarre world of ancient Chinese sleep culture, it's worth reflecting on what these historical practices can teach us about the universal human need for rest and the cultural meanings we attach to something as basic as sleep. Ancient Chinese sleep practices might seem absurd to modern sensibilities, sleeping on wooden blocks, arranging beds according to compass directions, and treating dreams as diplomatic communications with the spirit world. But beneath these seemingly strange customs lay sophisticated understanding of sleep's importance to human health and social functioning. The Chinese recognition that sleep environment affects sleep quality was centuries ahead of modern sleep science. Their attention to factors like room temperature, air circulation, and noise control demonstrates an understanding of sleep hygiene that contemporary researchers are still exploring. The integration of sleep with broader philosophical and medical systems shows how ancient Chinese culture recognized the connection between rest and overall well-being. While we might not believe in qi or spiritual energy, the idea that sleep affects every aspect of health and daily functioning is now supported by extensive modern research. The social aspects of ancient Chinese sleep culture remind us that sleep has never been just a personal, private activity. How we sleep, where we sleep, and what we sleep on continue to reflect and reinforce social relationships, economic status, and cultural values. Perhaps most importantly, ancient Chinese sleep culture challenges our modern assumption that more comfort necessarily means better sleep. While wooden pillows and hard beds might not be optimal for rest, the Chinese emphasis on discipline, routine, and mindful preparation for sleep offers insights that transcend specific sleeping arrangements. The elaborate rituals and careful attention to detail that characterized ancient Chinese bedtime practices suggest that our ancestors understood something we've largely forgotten. The transition from wakefulness to sleep deserves respect, attention, and intentionality. As you settle in for sleep tonight, perhaps on your comfortable modern mattress with your soft pillow perfectly positioned, you might spare a thought for the countless generations of Chinese people who approached bedtime with such seriousness and sophistication. Their wooden pillows and compass-oriented beds might seem absurd, but their recognition that sleep deserves careful attention and thoughtful preparation remains as relevant today as it was thousands of years ago. Sweet dreams. And remember, no matter how comfortable your bed is, you're participating in a tradition of human rest that stretches back through countless centuries of people who understood that how we sleep matters just as much as whether we sleep. And with that thought, let the gentle rhythms of history lull you into peaceful slumber, knowing that across time and culture, humans have always sought the perfect night's rest, even if their methods were wonderfully, absurdly different from our own. Before we drift off completely, let's explore one final aspect of ancient Chinese sleep culture that perfectly encapsulates the absurd lengths to which the wealthy would go for a good night's rest. The existence of professional sleep servants whose entire careers revolved around other people's bedtime needs. In the households of the very wealthy, particularly during the Tang and Song dynasties, there existed a specialized class of servants whose sole responsibility was managing their master's sleep. These weren't just general household servants who happened to help with bedtime. They were trained professionals who dedicated their lives to the science and art of facilitating other people's rest. The most basic level of sleep servant was the bed warmer, usually a young person whose job was to lie in their master's bed for 30 minutes to an hour before bedtime, using their body heat to warm the sheets and mattress. Imagine having professional human heating pad as your job description. These servants would then quickly vacate the bed just before their master arrived, hopefully without leaving any awkward warm spots that might disturb the transition to sleep. More specialised were the pillow adjusters, servants trained in the precise art of wooden pillow positioning. Since these pillows were notoriously uncomfortable and required exact placement to be even marginally tolerable, wealthy households employed people who could position them with mathematical precision. These servants studied angles, pressure points, and individual head shapes to customize pillow placement for each family member. The breath monitors had perhaps the most unsettling job of all. These servants would sit quietly beside their sleeping masters throughout the night, listening to breathing patterns and watching for signs of distress, illness, or spiritual attack. If breathing became irregular, if the sleeper seemed to be having nightmares, or if anything seemed amiss, the breath monitor would wake appropriate medical or spiritual personnel. Imagine trying to sleep knowing someone was literally watching you breathe all night. Dream scribes were employed to record their master's dreams immediately upon awakening. These servants had to remain alert throughout the night, ready to spring into action the moment their master stirred, quickly transcribing whatever dream content could be remembered before it faded. They were essentially human dream journals, complete with the ability to ask clarifying questions and organize dream narratives into coherent accounts. The temperature adjusters managed the complex heating and cooling systems that wealthy bedrooms required. Throughout the night, they would monitor room temperature, adjust heating stones, manage braziers, and coordinate with other servants to maintain optimal sleeping conditions. This required not just physical labour, but also an understanding of their master's personal temperature preferences and seasonal needs. Some households employed snoring suppressors, servants whose job was to gently reposition sleeping masters, who began to snore without waking them. This delicate art required extensive training in human anatomy, sleep phases, and the subtle techniques needed to adjust someone's position without disturbing their rest. These servants had to be strong enough to move adult bodies, but gentle enough to avoid causing awakening. Pest controllers worked throughout the night to protect sleeping masters from insects, rodents, and other unwanted creatures. Armed with fans, small brooms, and various repellents, they would patrol sleeping areas, ready to deal with any mosquitoes, flies, or other disturbances that might interrupt their master's rest. Some became expert at silent insect combat, developing techniques for eliminating pests without making any noise that might wake the sleeper. The security watchers were responsible for protecting sleeping masters from human threats. They would remain alert throughout the night, monitoring for intruders, political enemies, or family members with hostile intentions. These servants had to be trained in both combat and discretion, ready to defend their masters while maintaining the peaceful atmosphere necessary for quality sleep. Bedding specialists managed the complex rotation of seasonal bedding, the cleaning and maintenance of expensive textiles, and the precise arrangement of multiple layers of blankets and covers. They understood the specific preferences of each family member regarding weight, texture, and configuration of bedding materials. Some became experts at making beds so perfectly that disturbing them seemed almost criminal. Perhaps most bizarrely, some wealthy households employed sleep schedulers, servants responsible for coordinating the sleep schedules of multiple family members, guests, and other servants. They would manage wake-up times, coordinate shared sleeping spaces, and ensure that various sleep-related activities didn't conflict with each other. These servants essentially ran the household's sleep logistics, like military operations. The training for these positions was surprisingly rigorous. Sleep servants often began as children, learning their specialized skills through years of apprenticeship. They studied traditional Chinese medicine to understand sleep disorders, learned about dream interpretation to better serve their masters, and developed the physical skills necessary for their particular specialization. The social status of sleep servants was complex. While they were still servants, their specialized knowledge and intimate access to their masters' most vulnerable moments gave them unusual influence within households. Some sleep servants became trusted confidants, privy to family secrets and personal information that other servants never learned. The economic implications were significant. Wealthy households might employ dozens of sleep-related servants, representing a substantial investment in what was essentially luxury rest management. The existence of these positions demonstrates just how seriously ancient Chinese culture took the pursuit of optimal sleep conditions. Of course, this elaborate system of sleep servitude was only available to the extremely wealthy. Common people had to manage their own bedtime routines, warm their own beds, and monitor their own breathing. The contrast between the sleep experiences of different social classes couldn't have been more stark. Some people literally had teams of professionals dedicated to their rest, while others were lucky to have a roof over their heads. The decline of this system came gradually, as changing social structures, economic pressures, and evolving attitudes toward personal privacy made the idea of sleep servants seem increasingly absurd. By the modern era, the concept of having other people manage your bedtime had become a historical curiosity rather than a mark of wealth and status. Still, there's something almost admirable about the dedication these servants show to their craft. In a world before alarm clocks, climate control, or modern security systems, they provided personalised, attentive service that ensured their masters could rest peacefully. They were the ultimate sleep optimization specialists, centuries before anyone had heard of sleep hygiene or circadian rhythms. So the next time you're adjusting your own pillow, setting your own alarm, or managing your own bedtime routine, remember the ancient Chinese sleep servants, who turned these simple tasks into professional callings. They may have lived lives of service, but they were also masters of the art of rest, even if that rest belonged to someone else.